go. Let's go to one of my buddies here. We'll go to Cal and Max Sports. He says, which city is more cursed, Buffalo or San Diego? Man, that was a depressing ending for the Bills yesterday. A shame that Tyler Bass and Scott Norwood are now linked forever in Buffalo sports lore.
Wide right. Oh, it was terrible. They've got to drag this reputation now that's stapled to their resume. They can't do it in postseason. And it's just not Sean McDermott. As brilliant as a man as Marv Levy was, that didn't work either. So, yeah, there's probably heavy hearts in Buffalo. And unfortunately, the window of opportunity on these teams closes because you get age, you get injuries, you get retirement. Josh Allen is still a player. They still got a really good group of skill guys. They uncovered as James Cook is quite the running back. So, but boy, this is gut-wrenching. And Kansas City, they got to wear that, own it. You haven't beaten them yet when it counted the most.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Bills will be back. But yeah, and crap, it's winter up there. It's cold.
It's brutal.
A lot of things to feel bad about, aka Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's had it hard, but I think San Diego's had it worse. We've lost an NFL franchise. We had a team that would have been a number one seed in March Madness. They didn't make it because of COVID and a list of other things. But, there is that linkage, because the Buffalo Braves became the San Diego Clippers.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, so they're the two cities that have the curse. Maybe that's how the virus spread.
Okay, we move on.
Moving on. Let's go here to Willie. He says, we're talking about the analysts. He goes, turn the sound off. They all suck. Compared to past announcers, they're a freaking disgrace. Nothing more than player agents.
Oh, my goodness. Well, yeah, there's no doubt that when you transition from being a player to being in the booth, there's a line there. Where is that line? What do I say that's acceptable versus what do I say that might be critical, that might be unfair? It's a tough line for these guys to evaluate. I don't think any of those guys are really negative. Now, are they all critical? It depends what day of the week it is you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
But what's different is, and I'll say this, you can't analyze every snap, just like, I greatly enjoy the Padre broadcast crew, but you can't analyze every ball on strike.
Right.
But if you have the ability to give insight from the player's perspective as to what's happened and what you see formation-wise, you do that. And then if you throw some persona, a little bit of flair in there, that just makes the mix even better. Because the worst thing is everybody's analyzing 3rd and 18, what the hell you're going to do and what kind of defense. You can't do that play by play. At least that's one man's opinion who's been in that booth and worked with ex-players, broadcasters, of how to present the package of the information you have. I like all those guys. Obviously, Willie doesn't like any of them. I don't know. Willie, what the hell do you want on your TV? You tell me. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, they're all these guys are something, but obviously all the analysts are former players, right? Now, are there any of the play-by-play guys former players, or are they like professional broadcasters?
No, I don't. Off the top of my head, there might be a few. But I'm just talking about the marquee guys on the network, the lead teams. No, they're not former players at all.
Well, Callan has another follow-up on this. He says, Lee, who's the best analyst you've worked with, whether it's hockey or football?
Well, hockey, I did a one-man broadcast. NFL football, we had a bunch of really cool guys when we were the voice of the Chargers. Most unique guy was Chet Forty. Not that he was a great X and O's guy, but what a great storyteller he was. If I say Monday Night Football back in the day, you think
Howard Cosell,
Dandy Don, Frank Gifford.
Yeah.
They were all dynamic personalities. But the guy in the truck that created that aura was Chet Forty.
Ah, yeah.
And he worked 1 year with us as kind of an extra added color analyst to our broadcast. And the stories he could tell, because all the places he had been, it was awesome. So he was the most unique guy. And I enjoyed being around Pat Curran and Jim Laslovic, the former Charger guys. And the most unique guy I ever worked with was the guy in Seattle. And he's doing the Seahawks now. Longtime receiver, Steve Rabel. Really sharp dude. And he was my color analyst for the 3 years I did the Seattle Seahawks. And we had a good time. And it was strange for him because he knew who I was and I was coming from out of town and he knew me as the voice of the Chargers. And we hit the floor for the first broadcast. We had 3, 2 in the booth, 1 on the field. And we had a really good broadcast team, and unfortunately, the thing got broken up. But Steve is still the radio voice of the Seattle Seahawks. So I enjoyed working with him at Chet 40. God, John, you'd miss going to work. You'd sit there and listen
Yeah, he
to
was
his
great.
oh my goodness, where he'd been, what he had done, not just in the NFL, what he'd done in the NBA, and what he did in the Olympics. And this guy directed something with the Queen and the King in England.
Was it like the coronation or
Coronation.
something?
I mean,
Yeah.
phenomenal storylines of who he was, where he'd been. And I wish he had written a book before he passed. He had been so many places, done so many things. So that's a great
Do you have a
question.
favorite, like, old school analyst? Like, let's say before John Madden, back in the day. Are there any
Well,
ones that stand out?
I grew up as a kid following baseball
Mhm.
on Long Island. I was the only person I knew that was not a Yankee fan. And this is during the Mantle Maris era.
Oh my, okay.
And I grew up in the Brooklyn Dodger era, Ebbets Field, the Giants at the Polo Grounds. And I just remember listening to Yankee baseball, Mel Allen, Phil Rizzuto,
Yeah.
Red Barber. I guess that's the reason I am who I am now, right now, because I came from that background. So yeah, that's the era. You grew up in Frisco, probably Lon Simmons and some of those other guys.
Lon Simmons, Bill King,
Oh yeah,
Al Michaels, a lot of great ones. And then the new guy that's been doing the Giants, what's his name? He used to be the broadcaster for the Orioles. He's very good too.
Yeah. Oh, Miller, John Miller.
Yeah, John Miller.
And then of course, everybody in Los Angeles got spoiled by
Vin Scully. Yeah. And then, and then Chick Hearn, he was the one-man show, like just like you were.
Exactly. Okay, move on. We got other questions here.
All right, let's go here. Let's go to Kevin. He says, Lakers are under 500. Who should they trade? Who is available and would be the best fit?
Well, we talked about this last week. DeJounte Murray, Atlanta, suddenly is on the trade blocks, averaging 21 points per game. Any deal involving the Lakers is probably going to have to involve the big contract and the shooting guard, D'Angelo Russell. However, there's a lot of talk that Atlanta not only wants Russell, but they want Austin Reeves, and they want a number one pick, and the Lakers don't have very many number one picks there. But we did a big breakdown, Kevin. If you go back and look at last Thursday's podcast that's on the YouTube channel, we did a breakdown of all the transactions that their general manager, Pelinka, has made to try to change the roster going back 5 years. You'd be shocked at how hard they worked, what they brought in, and none of it's worked at all. And they're still sub 500. So, And they got AD and they got LeBron. They got half a season, and they're in 10th freaking place in the NBA Western Conference. So it's going to be hard to make a deal and get the right deal. And they've tried and haven't done it yet.
Yeah, well, I think in the end, the guys that are on that roster have got to play, and they've got to perform. And some of them are having down years. I do question if there's something going on with AD and LeBron. I don't know if it's their style of play or the chemistry, but that's the one common denominator through all of those years when Pelinka was making all of those moves.
Yeah, you go back and look. If you get spare time, hell, it's raining outside. You're not going outside today. You get spare time, Kev, go back and find our Thursday podcast. It's right there. And watch the Lakers segment that we did, because we put a full screen board of all the transactions that Pelinka's made. A phenomenal number of names they've imported and tried to work through in deals haven't happened. If not DeJounte Murray, Washington is shopping Kyle Kuzma. That's a really good basketball player. But you had him here before and you traded him away. Now he's got a mega contract, and now you got to get matching contracts because you're up against the tax payment. Very complex mosaic for Pelinka to negotiate through. But they got to fix this because these guys are on the clock.
Yeah, they're on the clock. Well, let's keep going here. We got John. He's got a comment. He says, has anybody contacted Pete Carroll? He would seem to be a no-brainer solution to give the Chargers some relevancy in the LA market. I expect the Chargers to charger this like everything else.
Using his quote, chargering. If we wake up by Thursday of this week, our next podcast, if we wake up and Harbaugh is at Michigan or somewhere else, if we wake up and Dan Quinn's been hired, leaving Dallas somewhere else, we wake up, the Chargers don't have a general manager and have yet to move on a coach because they lost guys. You can invoke your favorite word, chargering.
Yeah.
That's where we are, John. It's fascinating. No, nobody's called Pete Carroll yet. I don't understand it. Maybe he's going to sit out a year. They owe him a ton of money. Maybe he'll sit out a year and maybe try to cherry pick the right spot. But Hell, I would have called area code 206 the minute he got let go just to bring him in and explore. They haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I've been reading articles about Pete Carroll and the culture that he created with the Seahawks and how he's now like a public speaker dealing with corporations about culture building. And I'm thinking, well, this dude is like a savant. He's more than just a X's and O's guy.
He's unique.
He's an organization builder.
Okay.
Moving on, let's go down here to Hugh. He says Harbaugh would be a fool to sign with Chargers.
Well, everybody's got this thing in their bloodstream that I can do it. He did it at USD, tiny USD, no scholarships. He did it at Stanford. What he did at Stanford was really special. And obviously, he rebuilt the 49ers, and dude went to Michigan with great accolades. And he was in big jeopardy in 2020 of losing his job. And he reinvented his football operation in 2020. It took him 3 years, and look where they wound up. That is Harbaugh holding his trophy. They earned that trophy. So this guy knows how to roster build. This guy knows how to develop quarterbacks. This guy knows how to create toughness. I'd hire the guy. He's a little bit different. He's a little bit offbeat. Maybe it ends badly. Oh, crap. You got 4 or 5 years with him. Maybe it fixes the franchise while you got the kid quarterback.
Well, of all the names available, how would you stack rank them 1, 2, 3 if you're the Chargers ownership?
I would say Harbaugh because he's a young 60 years of age with a proven track record. I would say Pete Carroll, 1A. I like Dan Quinn, who, by the way, finished above 500 as a head coach, but didn't have a good organization around him. Those are the 3. I'm just kind of skitterish about recycled guys. Raheem Morris with the Rams as defensive coordinator has kind of rebuilt resume. Brian Flores has rebuilt his resume, even though he's suing the NFL. I'm a little bit skitterish about second-time head coaches who are not dynamic people. And the Chargers are of the opinion they need somebody dynamic. I think their quote was, "We want to reimage who we are," because they got the quarterback, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
So I'd take Harbaugh and I'd take Pete Carroll, one or the other. I don't know who you would take. Who would John Riley take?
Yeah, it's got to be Harbaugh because this is LA. This is Showtime, baby.
Well, Pete Carroll's Showtime too.
Yeah, he is, but they need that kind of a personality to lead their team.
Carry on.
Carrying on. Let's go here to 4RXLA, talking about Snell going 5 innings. He says Dave Roberts only uses 5-inning pitchers.
Oh, I knew you just would pile on. You would just need to pile on. The first thing that I read coming out of Los Angeles after they signed Ohtani and Yamamoto, the first thing was, Dave Roberts, you're going to screw this one up too? So we'll see. That's a really good team, though. Holy cow, that's a really good team now. And, they are not going to have Dustin May back till July at the earliest. Clayton Kershaw is rehabbing, and I assume they may have a secret deal that once he gets through the whole rehab process, that they will sign him. So we're going to get 2 starting pitchers in midseason on top of everything else you've already stockpiled. Now, granted, Ohtani is not going to throw. He's just going to be DH. What a batting order. What, Dave Roberts, you're going to screw this one up too?
He always seems to overmanage in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But, going back to this idea, it's different. We're not living in the era of Bob Gibson and Nolan Ryan when the guys would go 9, 10, 12 innings in a game. Now they only go like 6, right? And then you got your 2 setup guys and your closer. So it's changed, hasn't it? And I know some MLB franchises really focus on starters only going like half the game.
I think the thing that kind of fascinates me is we knew when November free agency opened, John, we knew what the Dodgers needed. And we knew what the assets were the Dodgers had to use to go get what they needed. And through all these transactions, getting Glasnow from Tampa, who's a proven commodity, he's got to stay healthy, but he is a proven commodity. Getting Yamamoto, that everybody thinks might be the best of all time to come out of Japan. That says a lot considering Yu Darvish and Kenta Maeda and Hyun-Jin Ryu and
Ohtani.
And Ohtani.
Yeah.
And then you add Ohtani. They did all that. And all they gave up on the offseason transactions were Ryan Pepio, who looks like he's got a bright career. He went to Tampa. And obviously the trade they made with the Cubs, which was a roster deal to move the first baseman Mike Bush, who's a great 4A player, but it's not proven he can hit major league pitching. He went to the Chicago Cubs just a couple of weeks ago. So the Dodgers made all these acquisitions that sure changed the landscape of the National League West, And all they gave up was one bright young pitcher and a first baseman who's yet to prove he can hit major league pitching. What a hell of an offseason LA's had.
Yeah, and they're bold, they're decisive. They had a plan and they executed it. And meanwhile, all these other teams are kind of sitting around waiting for something else to happen.
And the first question out of somebody's mouth in a column in Los Angeles, Dave Roberts, you're going to screw this up, are you? Let's carry on. A couple more here.
Carrying on, let's go here to Steve. Because Lee, I thought Vrabel was going to talk with Kraft about New England. What happened?
I think there was a prearranged transaction that Jared Mayo would be the guy. Everybody in the NFL, the insiders, and I network with a ton of people, are of the opinion that Vrabel was going to get an interview. Did not happen. Vrabel's going to get hired. The fact that Vrabel's being brought back in for second interviews within a week after getting dismissed in Tennessee, he was the last guy that got fired, means that Vrabel's going to wind up with a job. I'm not sure whether it's going to be Atlanta, whether it might be Washington. Washington's been very silent. They haven't talked about who they've interviewed. Other teams like the Chargers have openly talked. Chargers have interviewed 14 coaching candidates. So we'll see if Vrabel shows up for a second interview in LA. I think Atlanta, if the Belichick thing does not work out, but he's a good coach, will get hired. I was stunned they let him go. They're in the middle of rebuild. It's obvious that they've got the quarterback, Will Levis, from the University of Kentucky, and yet they hit the eject button on him. So
I love this idea of a coach in waiting, kind of like with Dutcher and Fisher at San Diego State, because if you can identify your next guy, then it doesn't put anything in doubt. You've got continuity with a plan that works, and you avoid a lot of this drama. I think Kraft has made a good move here.
I think they knew the pedigree. They knew where he was, what he had come from as a player and grown into the position. It's kind of like Antonio Pierce with the Raiders. I mean, they knew who he was, who he played under, what he learned from. And that's why he was 5-4. That being said, coach the hell out of him with a lot of emotion. You still need a quarterback. You still need more players of the Raiders. But at least they know from a system standpoint what they're going to run, and they know how he interacts with his players.
Moving on. All right, let's go to Emmanuel. He says, this whole situation in Oakland is getting worse. They lost the Warriors, the Raiders, and now going to lose the A's and In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah, the In-N-Out Burger at the airport. John, you won't be able to have lunch when you fly through the Bay Area now. In-N-Out Burger just closed. I just found out about that this morning. Oakland it's an economically disadvantaged city. There are probably some parts of Oakland that are really neat and historical, and there's a lot of bad parts. And I think the economics of the city of Oakland on the East Bay is just a bad set of circumstances. And yet you talk to people. I followed an interview that Ron Washington did, and he talked about his time with, quote, Moneyball in Oakland and what it was like to be there and how electric it was. So here's support, but it's economically disadvantaged. They can't get a stadium built. It's so complex. California law may play into that, but yeah, it's sad. They've lost everything in the city of Oakland.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, by the way, Ron Washington he had a character playing him in the movie Moneyball, if I remember.
It was great.
Yeah. So, but I've been to Oakland recently. Like I was there about a year ago, and I was in this little neighborhood. It was kind of cool. It was a really neat little place. But yeah, Oakland's got a lot of history, a lot of baggage. But I think the thing that's challenging is in California, taxpayers don't want to subsidize stadiums, and they're making it more and more difficult for them to build. And I think that's why they're hitting the eject button.
Why would I want to pay for somebody's stadium to a rich man when I freak out paying $4.93 for a gallon of gasoline and my grocery bill? I mean, living out here is so bleeping expensive now.
Well, we got to get taxpayers to build a podcast studio for us. That's what we should do.
Okay, let's move to social media because we got some comments from some of John's best friends and some of his enemies too that wanted to join us on social media on Fans Forum.
All right, let's go here to more Chargers comment from Breeze B. He says, this family of owners is a joke. The league and fans can laugh at this team for many more years to come. Chargering, no home stadium, always injured, choking late leads, soft. This can all end now, but it won't. And I'm a frickin' Bolts fan.
Yeah, Bolts fans are really fed up. And how's this tidbit? I'll just tack onto the back of Breezer's social note. Guess who interviewed for the Raiders general manager job today for a second time? Tom Telesco.
Really?
I can't believe Tom Telesco would trade in Charger gear to wear the silver and black. Wow. But he's interviewed a second time. He would bring law, order, and class, which they've hardly ever seen, to the Raider Nation's front office if he wound up taking. He interviewed. He's there today.
Well, they're starting, and they got Tom Coughlin here. I mean, it seems like maybe the Raiders are kind of changing their tune.
Yeah, structurally might be very, very different. That'd be fascinating if it happened. And Tom he worked really hard. He got a lot of athletes. He got the quarterback, couldn't stay healthy. He wasn't bold, which was one of my critiques of him. But he's a really good man. I mean, that is intriguing. If you got Telesco and you got Coughlin as a consultant, that's kind of different than been there forever and ever and ever under Mark Davis and prior to that, Al Davis.
Yeah, it's a lot different. So good for those guys. Hey, let's move on. Hey, let's talk a little bit of little Lakers here from By the Willow of Crom. He says, it takes 5 on the floor to play cohesive defense. LeBron doesn't play defense most of the time.
Yeah, that's one item. There's some age and injury issues there. The other item, last I checked, Adam Silver, the commissioner, still has a rule that says there's only one basketball on the floor at a time.
Yes.
I think sharing the basketball and role responsibilities. But no, Willow, you're correct. Other end of the floor, it seems like a foreign substance nobody pays any attention to. And that's, bigs, athletes, they've just got a lot of internal chemistry problems, I think.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think LeBron and AD somehow are part of the problem, and they keep trying to keep them and solve the periphery, but maybe their meat and potatoes aren't the right guys.
Okay, social media, somebody else stand up and shout.
Okay, let's go here to Tom Power. He says, I live in Orange County, and San Diego deserves the Chargers. Used to love driving down there. Great fans. Owners can kill franchises. Hey, we got Artie Moreno, for example.
Yeah, one and the same right now. And I mean, Arte Moreno, I was a huge backer of Arte Moreno, but we're sitting here in 2024 and look at what the example of what the franchise has evolved into, turned into, and now he's become a recluse of a man. If I were rich like Arte Moreno, or I had money and I owned the franchise like Dean Spanos, how horrible it must be to be disliked across the board by virtually everybody and to be a recluse. Almost be a hostage in your own offices at Angel Stadium because you don't want to go outside because you'll probably get booed. And you don't want to talk to the freaking media because you're in grudge mode for what they're reporting. What they're reporting on is bad football. What they're reporting on is 27-0 lead lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars a year ago. They're just reporting the facts and expressing opinions of the money you pissed away signing drug trouble players in Anaheim. What must it be like for these guys to have money and, quote, family fame, I own my franchise, and be stuck in your office because you can't go outside?
Yeah, it's the whole thing is a disgrace.
Bizarre.
It is bizarre. I mean, with all of those resources, you're in the media capital of the world. I mean, what's the hell's the problem here? But isn't it interesting how in all different sports, if you've got a recluse of an owner, everything below them on the org chart is just dysfunctional. I mean, like, Robert Irsay in Indy. I mean, and we could talk about NBA owners and MLB owners. I mean,
Jimmy Irsay, his son.
Pardon me, Jim Irsay.
And Robert Irsay was dysfunctional too.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So, I mean, that's what it's always been. It's always been the leadership matters. And if you don't have the right guy at the top, it's going to be a cluster.
That's where we are. A couple more here.
Okay, let's go here. Talk a little bit about Amazon and Bally. This is from Mikey, talking baseball streaming. He says, as a lifelong Rangers fan, I can't wait for Bally to die and give me my team back. I'm hoping they go to Amazon Prime, but really, as long as Bally is out of the picture, it's going to be a huge win for the fans. How MLB allowed this nonsense to drag on for so long is beyond me.
Well, everybody knew streaming was coming at some level. We did not know that Diamond and Bally were going to self-destruct and that so many of these franchises were going to lose their TV deals. And, flipping it back to the Padres back-end loaded a bunch of these contracts because they knew they had a $60 million a year TV deal for the next 20 years. Now that $60 million per season is gone because Bally dumped the contract, Major League Baseball took it over. But what the Padres are going to make this year is not going to be equal to what happened last year. And going forward, much smaller amount of money. And the Padres are still on the hook for all the deferred money that they owe and the back-end loaded money they owe to their stars. It's a huge issue in Major League Baseball. Texas does not have this deal done yet. Something will happen. Atlanta was part of this, I think, the 6 teams that agreed to take one more year, full payment from Bally. Why the Padres didn't qualify for full payment this year, but MLB has them as the anchor to the streaming. It's a very complex problem for sure. But streaming is now part of life. And a year from today, when the AFC and NFC championship games are on streaming, it probably won't be for $5.99. It might be for a hell of a lot of money. I don't want to hear any beefing from you a year from today, Sammy Streamer.
Well, hopefully it's on Amazon Prime, where I'm already paying for it now, not only for the free shipping, but to watch movies. That wouldn't be so bad. But, you got to sign up for Peacock. You got to sign up for Amazon and Netflix and yada, yada. Suddenly you've got a whole smorgasbord going.
Okay. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our Monday bonus podcast.